Okay, so quadratics part 3, it is just a review of everything that we know. Let's first things first, the quadratic formula. This we should know or have written down somewhere. I'm not going to force you to memorize it, but you need to have this written down. It is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, and that is comes with the standard form being ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So the quadratic formula uses that. And remember our box method. If we have a standard form, remember we want to try to draw a box here, and we put the ax squared here, whatever the ax squared is, and we put the c here, and we try to find what these two things are using our box method. So I'm going to go into an example of both of an equation. So today's assignment is you solve by doing either the box method, factoring, whatever is more comfortable for you, factoring, or quadratic formula. Not all of these answers, I don't know if all of these will be factorable. I'm going to assume yes, maybe, but whatever you're more comfortable with, you use. It's going to be up to you, and it's going to be the exact same thing on the test. Whatever you want to use, as long as you show the work, box method or quadratic formula, unless, yeah, no, use whatever's more comfortable for you. All right, I'm going to show you both methods. So first one, I'm going to use factoring. I'll show you how to factor this one. So this one, using the box method or the other factoring method. As long as you show some kind of method to factoring and some kind of work, it'll be fine. So here, I'm going to use the box method. The first one is going to be x squared. Last one is negative 9. I know that x times x makes x squared. Two factors of negative 9. There are 9 and 1 and 3 and 3. I notice this is a negative, so it has to be a subtraction, right? One has to be positive, one has to be negative. So you are looking for a difference. 9 and 1 is the only one that gives me a difference of 8. So I'm going to use 9 and 1. And since it's positive 8, I'm going to use negative 1. And if I check that out, see, this is negative x, and this is 9x. 9x minus 1x is positive 8x. I know I have that right. My factor is then x minus 1 and x plus 9. Set them up to be 0. My answer should be x equals 1 and x equals negative 9 once I set them up equal to 0 and solve. Just a reminder how to do that. X minus 1 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides. X equals 1. X plus 9 equals 0. Subtract 9 to both sides. X equals negative 9. So this is how you can show ample work by just factoring. Here, the second one, using quadratic formula. Exact same equation, quadratic formula. My A is 1, B is 8, C is negative 9. Plug that back to the formula. Negative 8 plus or minus square root 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 9 divided by 2 times 1. Simplify. Negative 8 plus or minus 64 plus 36 divided by 2. 64 plus 36 is 100. So negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 100 divided by 2. The square root of 100 is 10. So negative 8 plus or minus 10, divide that by 2. So I'm just going to plug these two into the calculator. So the first one be negative 8 plus 10, divide that by 2. Negative 8 plus 10, well, that gives me positive 2. Divide that by 2, that's positive 1. The other answer being positive 8 minus 10 divided, well, negative 8 minus 10 divided by 2, that is negative 18 divided by 2, that is a negative 9. And if I notice here, quadratic formula and factoring gives me the same answer of 1 and negative 9. Let's do another one. Key thing to the quadratic formula and factoring, it has to be in standard form. This 4 over here on that side, I don't want it onto that side. So I'm going to move it to the other side by subtracting it to both sides. So this changes this to 3x squared plus 8x minus 4 equals 0. That is the equation I'm going to use instead of the one that's on top. So it's 3x squared plus 8x minus 4 equals 0. I'm going to try to factor this first. So here we have 3x squared and we have a negative 4. 3x and times x makes 3x squared. Now I have to think about two factors of 4. If it's a negative, we got a minus and a minus plus. So one sign is a positive, one sign is a negative. So the difference has to be 8. I really can't think of which one in my head it would be. So I'm going to guess. I'm just going to guess. So let me try. It has to multiply to make negative 4. So there's 4 times 1 and 2 times 2. So let me try 2 times 2. So if I had, let's say, 2 here, let's say 2 here and 2 here, 3 and one of them's negative. So let's try this one negative. 3 times 2 is 6x. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Well, 6x minus 2x, well, that gives me positive 4x. So not quite. Not quite. If I switched off my negatives, it would just be negative 4. So it's not going to work. Let's try 4 and 1. So let's try 4 and 1. Here I have 4 and I have 1 here. 4 times x is 4x. Oh, one of them's got to be negative. Let's try this one. This 4x, 3 times negative 1. Well, that's negative 3x. That doesn't add up to 8. Right? Because 4x and 3x, that gives me 1x. So no, not quite. So here, let's try a different one. Let's try 4 over here, 1 over here. 3 times 4 is 4. 1 times x is 1x. Even to make one of them negative. So I make that one negative. Still not gonna work. Still not gonna work. I'm gonna have the 3 times 4 is 12. I'm so sorry. 3 times 4 is 12. Even so, 12 and 1 still doesn't work. So I've tried every combination of 4s and 3s to try to make 8, and it doesn't work. So here, this does not factor. So I can't factor to find that answer. So I gotta go to the quadratic formula, because the quadratic formula will always find the answer to everything. So rewrite this, 3x squared plus 8x minus 4 equals 0. That's why sometimes factoring could be a waste of time, even though quadratic formula might look like it's a longer method. So here I'm gonna do A is 3, B equals 8, and C equals negative 4. Plug that in. So negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 4 all over 2 times 3. I'm going to simplify this. So this is negative 8 plus or minus 64 plus 4 times negative 4 is negative 4 times negative 4. That's positive 16. 16 times 3. Let's see here. 16 times 3 is 48. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 4 is 48. So it's 48 over 6. 64 plus 48 is 112. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 112 over 6. If I punch that into my calculator, this becomes negative 8 plus or minus 10.58 over 6. So one of my answers is negative 8 plus 10.58 over 6, and the other answer is negative 8 minus 10.8 over 6. I'm going to simplify this, see what I get. And this is 0.43 once I punch it into the calculator, and this becomes negative 3.10 into my calculator. So these are my two answers that x could possibly be. And spend the rest of the time, use the quadratic formula. If you cannot factor, if you don't want to factor any of that, that is perfectly fine too. If you want to just use the quadratic formula every time because you know it's going to give you the answer. But if some of you know how to factor quickly and you're like, I can factor some of these quickly, I'd rather do that, split it half and half. That's up to you too. As long as you show work, it's perfectly fine. I spend the rest of the time doing the work.